Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me here. This is my first public appearance since the war has started, and I apologize in advance if I'm being a bit too nervous. So calling a war in Russia is considered punishment, can be punished by a 15-year sentence in Russian jail. So basically now you see once again a traitor, which I usually use to start my talks with, because if you look at various sites of pro-governmental gongos or just vigilantes, like Committee of Defense of Motherland Against Traitors, I don't joke, that's a real name. They will have my photo there on one of the lists of those foreign agents and traitors that are selling Russia to the Westerners. So basically that's what I'm doing now. And first of all, I would like to talk about the place I used to work for and continue trying to work for now, because I'm not in Russia. Well, obviously, at the moment, and don't have a plan to come back for now. So I used to work at the Szaharov Center, which is the organization that works to preserve and promote the legacy of academician Andrei Szaharov. So if you're up for a show of hands, I would like to know, should I tell the short version or a bit longish one? Who knows who Szaharov is? Okay, short version it is. So he was born in 1921 and died in 1989, a Soviet physicist of the highest rank, the first and youngest academicians among the Soviet nuclear program, who received a Nobel Peace Prize winner, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner for his peacemaking efforts and human rights work. So first he created the Soviet, was part of the team that created the Soviet hydrogen bomb, and then became a human rights defender, for which he, on one hand, won the Nobel Peace Prize, but on the other hand, received an exile for 7 years that he spent in Gorky, practically under house arrest, for condemnation of Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So now we already see some similarities, well, at least historical ones. And our center, our mission was, as I already said, was to preserve and promote the legacy of Andrei Szaharov, which we did in various forms, as an archive, as a museum, but also as an event space that rented out free spaces to any civic activist groups, to any forms of free public dialogue. We had a huge discussion program and a lot of informal education on human rights. So now you know where we stand and how we kind of started. So I will come to the good depressing stuff very soon. But let me reminisce a bit about the good old times of international conferences back before the COVID, when, of course, everyone wanted to know what's wrong with the Russians. And, well, what I usually would say is that we have a very, shrinking space of civil society. This is a very, used, it's used a lot, but still I like to remind my counterparts about the fact that even though the civil space is shrinking, it's like a bit like Émile Zola's magical skin. You remember the short story? Okay, it never went well. This one citing Zola. But still, it was a magic. It's a magical skin that every time you every time you made a wish, it became smaller and smaller. So I was still persistent on telling people that even though our space is becoming smaller and smaller, it is still kind of magical. It is still can do some miracles. But in the course of the last, well, at least in my experience, 10 years, because that's how long I've been working at the Szaharov Center, the space has been only shrinking. And how it started? It started with the Foreign Agents Law. And I heard some of the previous speakers today, and you talked about smear campaigns. So that was a smear/legislation campaign that singled out first organizations. Then it started to work on media. Then it was about people who perform as media, so it was individuals on the list already. Then you had the newest development is still in the works. They are going to have lists of individuals who are persons under foreign influence. Because what constitutes a foreign agent in Russia? You have to have two things. You have to have foreign funding and you have to have political activity. Both terms are not defined by the law and used very loosely. So basically, this is how the regime throttles opposition and declares that anyone who they don't like, well, is a foreign agent, which is in Russian synonymous to a spy. So I don't know how it's in Hungarian, but in Russia, you could, if you Googled foreign agent, then if you excluded any news about well, human rights defenders being proclaimed foreign agents, then you would receive a list of results that would tell about finding some spies in one or the other country. So foreign agents and smear campaigns, and then which worked against the people, but it also worked against the donors and funding. Because ever since the introduction of this law, the constant question to me was, shouldn't the West try to refrain from, contacting Russian NGOs? Shouldn't we, for your own safety, be a bit more undercover or seize our communication? I will come back to the answer that I gave to this question later, but I think you might find it similar to what is happening in your respective countries as well. Because there's always this, good European that asks you, maybe should I leave you to your strange, inner politics? So with the foreign agents, with the Foreign Agents Law, they were able to get rid of part of the funding, but then the next thing happened, the so-called unwanted organizations list, which included major American donors. I think it was in 2015 or late 2014-ish, doesn't matter. We lost up to 40% of our funding. So the magic skin shrunk again, but we still tried to stay connected, and we were able to reform our programs, our budgets, find new donors, find new connections, and continue. But in the upcoming years, more and more organizations were included on the list of unwanted organizations, so which are basically a special list for donors and or think tanks that continue to work with Russia. So first it was the Americans, then it was the Czechs, and now the latest developments that are happening during the war, they came for the Germans. The last, so probably the last big donor that is left in Russia is the European Council, which is kind of on the path to becoming an unwanted organization in itself. You know that Russia left the... Sorry, I don't hear you, so we'll have to take it. It was excluded, and that's what I'm hinting at, yes. So, but it was excluded, but still they are represented in Russia, and of course, anytime an organization is included on the list, they have to cease their operations because any contact or work with the unwanted organization can result in a prison sentence. So, I'm sorry, I forgot to look at the time. How much do I have? Okay. So with there was no funding, there was no media, no press for the foreign agents, because this is, you know, this is a very boring development. You have your thing going on with the European Courts of Human Rights, but it doesn't, you know, move anywhere, and the news are all the same. This one was included, this one was included. They tried to appeal, nothing happened. So only in autumn of 2021, last year, after the pandemic, we were able, or the Russian NGOs were able to launch a big campaign because we, of course, had our differences on how to tackle this, how to work with the public opinion, how to try to appeal to people regarding this nonsensical and legislation. And more than 200,000 people have signed the petition to abolish the law, but that unfortunately didn't change anything in the end for us. The law is still there, it's working, and it's being developed and developed and developed because they are adding new categories of people, new categories of individuals, and new categories of you know, people who work for organizations that are foreign agents are also now to be included onto the list of individuals. But I think it's too much details. So, but COVID got us rid of another thing that was more or less possible in Russia before that. We became free of public protest because demonstrations were practically banned even before the COVID, but citing COVID protection or COVID regulations, the authorities, of course, did their best to give us even less space, because now due to COVID regulations, you are not allowed to do an individual picketing. So you can't go outside on the street alone because, you know, it endangers people. We all have to fight COVID, wear a mask, whatnot. But that wasn't the end of it, because right up to the war, and we can see it by the success, relative success, I mean, of this petition for abolishing the foreign agents law, that the social media and media have started working for us, for the civic society. But unfortunately, the war has helped the authorities a lot in this direction too. So, as you probably know, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are blocked in Russia and accessible only via VPN. And Meta is proclaimed an undesirable organization. So, without that, we also were deprived of media. Not that we had much in the beginning, but during the last 3 months, all of the independent media or semi-independent media were blocked on the web, so you cannot access them without using VPN in Russia. Most of the independent press and the only independent TV channel, RAIN, have ceased to update or to publish. So, for example, Novaya Gazeta, the recent Nobel Peace Prize acceptance winners, they have also stopped publishing, but they opened up a new media outlet in Europe. And now I come back to the question that you might remember was asked by the well-wishing Europeans. Well, shouldn't we cease contact? This is clearly a very dangerous situation for you. This is a very clear indication from the authorities that they don't want anything Western present in the state. And what I would usually answer was that even though the authorities are saying that they have trouble with the Western money, it's not about the money. It's about the values. So what we are standing for are the values of peace, progress, and human rights. And what we are trying to uphold are the values, and it doesn't matter if we have no support from the West. It definitely will be harder for us if we don't have any external support. But it will not disencourage us from continuing. So, and my time is up.